Welcome to the English Learning Podcast. In this episode, we're going to have a conversation with our guest, John, who has been learning English for the past 2 years. Hi, John.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, can you tell us a bit about your experience learning English?
Sure. I started learning English 2 years ago because I wanted to improve my chances of getting a job in an international company. At first, it was really difficult for me because I didn't have any background in the language, but I kept practicing and studying every day, and now I feel more confident with my English skills.
That's great to hear. What kind of resources did you use to learn English?
I used a combination of resources, including textbooks, online courses, and language learning apps. I also watched a lot of English TV shows and movies with subtitles to get used to the language.
That's a great approach. Speaking of TV shows and movies, do you have any favorites that you would recommend to other English learners?
Absolutely. I think shows like Friends, The Office, and How I Met Your Mother are great for learners because they use everyday language and have a lot of humor. For movies, I would recommend anything with subtitles, like Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings.
Those are definitely popular choices. Now, let's talk about speaking. How did you practice speaking English?
Well, at first, I was really nervous about speaking English with native speakers because I was afraid of making mistakes. But I found a language exchange partner online, and we would practice speaking English and my partner's native language together. I also joined a language learning group on Facebook, where I could practice speaking with other learners from all over the world.
That's a great idea. How do you feel about your speaking skills now?
I feel a lot more comfortable speaking English now. I still make mistakes, but I'm not as afraid to speak up and practice. I also find that the more I practice speaking, the more confident I become.
That's great to hear. Now, let's move on to grammar. What kind of strategies did you use to improve your grammar?
I used a lot of grammar exercises in my textbooks and online courses. I also found that reading English books helped me to see how grammar works in context. And of course, I always asked my teachers or language exchange partners for feedback on my grammar.
Excellent strategies. Finally, what advice do you have for other English learners who are just starting out?
My advice would be to not give up, even when it feels difficult. Language learning is a journey, and there will be times when you feel like you're not making progress. But if you keep practicing and using different resources, you will improve over time. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes, they are a natural part of learning any language.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, John, and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you for having me.